Chapter 2. The Red Queen Herself. Ahem! The queen cleared her throat. She was a beautiful woman with arched eyebrows and a withering stare. She was wearing an ornate red ball gown with accents of black, white, and, of course, hearts. Her ruby crown sat high on her head, her elegant long red hair as straight and neat as a velvet curtain. Around her neck was a necklace with a shimmering ruby pendant, and the stiff collar of her dress flooded gracefully above her shoulders so that it looked like she was encapsulated by a heart. She was as ferocious and glamorous sight to behold. But Red thought it was most impressive how her mother didn't even have to raise her voice to indicate the depth of her wrath. The queen clapped and cleared her throat. Her voice was melodious but cold. "People of Wonderland, may I have your attention, please?" The garden had already been quiet enough to hear a pin drop, and everyone in it had their eyes trained on the queen, from the boy in the gray top hat to the girls by the pool, to the many soldier cards and frog butlers who were doing everything they could, that is to say, nothing, to make the party uninteresting. But it was typical for Red's mother to not quite see her subjects clearly, much less emphasize with them. Everyone did their best to focus their attention even harder. The queen smiled at her subjects, assuaged. "Red, how are you, dear?" she called, seeing her daughter. "Having a nice time?" "Not really," Red said, shrugging. The Queen of Hearts smiled and nodded. "That's good. Must you wear so much leather?" she asked, making a dour face at Red's outfit. "It makes you look like a troublemaker." Red felt her cheeks get hot, but no one dared look at her. The queen continued without apology. "Now, it has come to my attention that we are severely lacking several laws that will benefit each and every one of us. As your ruler, I am sorry to have neglected these important areas of improvement for so long. They simply cannot wait until the next royal decree. If the people of Oridon hadn't been carefully trained, Red knew a groan might have sounded through the garden. Even so, she thought she noticed one of the green frog butlers twitch with annoyance before falling still again. The soldier card next to the queen produced a scroll of parchment and unfurled it in Red's mother to read. He wore the same uniform they all did, a red helmet with a heart on the front, and red and black leather armor with a sword at his side. The little diamond on his right breastplate marked his card number. This one was 9. "You all know, of course, that birthdays are illegal," the queen began. "Who needs them? Every year, with the silly surprises, the unruly running about, it's all very tedious." Everyone nodded and murmured in agreement, like they were supposed to. "Every year we present a table full of desserts, to show how corruptive they can be." She eyed the table of desserts sourly. The purpose of its presence was to remind the subjects of what they didn't need, as well as to test and strengthen their will. Red knew that it was also a trap. If anyone was caught touching the sweets, they would be severely punished. Red thought it was rather clever, in a way, if a bit sadistic. "Oh," the queen said, visibly shaken. "Is that a cupcake?" The crown and glory of the dessert table was a tower of pink flamingo feather cupcakes. Red turned to the royal baker, who was quivering in their boots. Ma'am, your majesty, I'm so sorry. I found an old recipe of yours. Get it out of my sight," the queen hissed. Then she patted her brow with a red handkerchief. Red wondered what that was all about. She'd never seen her mother fall apart at the sight of a cupcake before. Then again, she realized she'd never really seen a cupcake before either. She wondered what they tasted like, but perhaps she'd never know, since the baker was taking a tray of them away. The queen clapped again, back to looking like herself. "So, birthdays are still illegal. Treats are discouraged, especially cupcakes. What's more, all laughter should be avoided before noon. It simply is not good for your heart to laugh so early. Perhaps it's better not to laugh at all. This obviously means that jokes shall only be told every other Saturday if one feels the absolute need. But from her tone it was clear that no one should ever feel the need to tell a joke. The Queen waved her hand, and the soldier card let the scroll refurl with a snap. "That is all," she said. "You are welcome." All the partygoers in castle staff bowed low with choruses of "Thank you, Your Highness," and "Yes, Your Majesty." The Queen smiled benevolently and nodded, soaking it all in. Then something caught the corner of Red's eye. There was a younger boy near the dessert table, one she'd seen staring wide-eyed at the treats earlier that afternoon. He was taking advantage of the Queen's distraction to stuff two and then three strawberry tarts into the pockets of his checkered pants. He looked terrified but very determined. Red smirked, delighted by this little theft. But like all things in Wonderland, misbehavior didn't go unpunished. "You!" The Queen's voice sliced through the crowd. Red wasn't sure how her mother had seen the child from her vantage point, but all at once everyone was staring at the dessert table, color draining from his face. The boy dropped the sweets and froze. "What did I just say?" The Queen of Hearts punctuated every word by smacking her hands together, looking unbelievably exasperated with the whole situation. Sorry," the boy squeaked, his mouth full of tarts. "Take it away! Take it all away!" the Queen commanded. "Him too! I want him out of my sight!" One of the soldier cards scooped up the boy and carried him away through a corridor of the hedge maze. Other children might have kicked and protested, but the boy accepted the consequences of his actions and his subsequent fate, hanging limp in the guard's arms. Two other soldier cards hefted the entire dessert table and tipped everything into the koi pond. Luckily, it was an unkoi pond, so there were no fish to be harmed. Everything happened in quick succession and very efficiently, and in no more than a moment or two, the distressing situation was dealt with. The Queen of Hearts brushed her hands off briskly, as though she had touched something unpleasant. "One more thing," she said. The Queen now beamed directly at her daughter, and though Red was not afraid of her mother's dictums, usually just annoyed by them, she felt a ripple of unease in her stomach. "You are all well familiar with our triumph in the War of the Roses." "Indeed," the unpartygoers murmured dutifully. "The War of the Roses, hear, hear." It was the first and most important topic taught at Wonderland schools. How Wonderland chose not to join the United Kingdoms of Oregon, and how the Queen raised an army to maintain its freedom. And so Oregon locked up the rabbit hole and closed Wonderland off from the rest of the kingdom in fear. And I know how much you love the annual Wonderland tea ceremony, to be held in 2 weeks' time. That commemorates our important history, as well as heralds the royal decree for the upcoming year. We've had some noteworthy decrees in years past. The year that raised the stakes on the National Croquet League by introducing red card beheadings. The one that imprisoned all kittens and puppies until they were properly trained. Or the unforgettable year we banned dancing of any kind, the Queen of Hearts continued. But this year, I am happy to announce that the ceremony will be a special one. For it is when my own daughter, Red of Hearts, will be giving the royal decree. An obligatory cheer erupted from the garden. Royal subjects rushed forward to congratulate Red, and the soldier cards shuffled together in a stiff salute. Red nodded and smiled faintly, but inside it felt like she'd gotten the wind knocked out of her. She always knew she'd take on more regal duties, but this was throwing her in the deep end. The decree at the Wonderland tea ceremony was a big one, containing a collection of rules, regulations, and goals for the upcoming year. It set the tone for the kingdom, and now she'd not only be responsible for coming up with those new strict laws, but announcing them in a fancy speech. Red made her way to her mother, who was applauding daintily in her elbow-length red gloves. "Are you sure? Already?" Red asked beneath the noise of the crowd. Of course, her mother crowed. If anything, we've waited too long. I know it's such a big responsibility. Don't you worry. The queen reached out and pinched Red's cheek, teasing but affectionate, because she knew how it annoyed Red. We'll have more than enough time to prepare, and I'll be with you every step of the way. Okay, Red nodded. The thought of the queen turning the harsh light of her full attention on Red and nitpicking all the while did not exactly comfort Red. And once you take this on, you'll be ready for more royal duties. But before you know it, you'll be just like me, better than ever before. The queen flashed a wide smile before Red could respond, then clapped and cried, Gods! The soldier cards fell into two neat and perfect lines behind her, and soon the garden looked just as it had before she'd made her entrance. All the royal subjects turned immediately back to their own games as mechanically as figures in a cuckoo clock. All but one, of course. Only Red noticed that the uneaten dessert slowly turned to mush in the pond.